Okay, I think that we're ready to start today's event. And I am so grateful that every single one of you are participating, not just our speakers, who I'm very grateful for, but also those of you that have took time away from your busy days to have lunch with us at the Business and Leaders Luncheon. I'm Lynn Snodgrass, the CEO of the Best Darn Chamber in the Pacific Northwest, the Gresham Area Chamber of Commerce, and without our presenting sponsors, this event would not be possible. So I want to recognize them, please. Columbia Bank, thank you, Robin, for your consistent support with Columbia Bank. The Boeing Company, we're very grateful, and the Boeing, our Boeing chairman, our Boeing representative on the board is our president-elect. Portland General Electric is a relatively new sponsor to this particular event, but not a new sponsor to our chamber. But they do have a newer board member, Andrew from PGE, who was instrumental in helping us organize not only today's topic, but some of the speakers. So I want to thank Andrew for that. I also want to thank our stakeholder sponsor, Gresham Barlow School District, and our media sponsor, MetroEast Community Media. This is being recorded today by them, and you'll be able to listen to it again on our website, on the chamber, but also on all the channels that MetroEast Community Media has as well. So you can check with us, or you can check with them to find out the times for this recording. All right, today's topic is economy, Black leadership. We are going to allow questions, but not during the seminar today because of the time element here. But if you do have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box, and we will absolutely forward them to any of or all three of our speakers today, so they won't go unanswered. So I am excited to share the Zoom stage with these men. Each will speak for about 15 minutes, sharing their particular piece of the economic pie. And we know the economy is a very critical element in every community. The healthy economy, the more healthy the economy, the happier the community as it goes. Our first speaker is from Mount Hood Community College. He's going to speak on economics and schools. It'll be Dr. Al McQuarters. He's the Vice President of Instruction at Mount Hood Community College. His role at the community college as the Vice President of Instruction, his experience and insights from his career, and his most recent experience at another community college fit today's topic perfectly. The economic aspect and goal of his department will deliver great products, not just in students, and that would be a home run, but it's a critical role for the health and economic growth of all of our community. Specifically, Mount Hood Community College is an asset to our region. So is it just the students? Is there an additional link to the college? What is the economic appreciation that you would have, Dr. Al McQuarters? Your turn to speak. I'm so grateful that you're here.
I'm grateful to be here too as well. Good morning, everyone. I'll share my screen and I'll get started. So I'm going to talk about economics in school. So the first thing I want to kind of start off with is by saying school is a driver of opportunity, equity, employment, and social mobility. So when I use the word school, it's very important to kind of understand what I'm talking about. I'm not just talking about community college, which is going to be a lens for a portion of my conversation, but also K-12, the university, whether it's undergrad, grad school, professional school as well. So I'm going to make that connection all together in my talk. Also, when I talk about opportunity, equity, employment, and social mobility, it's important to understand the context, even personally as well. So on paper, the statistics say and suggest that I should not be here and I should not be vice president of a college. My parents didn't finish high school. I'm neither one. I'm an African-American male. I grew up in the inner city, have a number of experiences that were probably very traumatic. One example was house broken into. Another example, there was a shooting and there was 20 bullets that went through my front kitchen and the dining room. Another example, I had a break-in and they cut the bottom of the door, the front door. They sawed it off to get into the house. So when I'm talking about opportunity, equity, employment, and social mobility, it's very personal for me. But also, why is this important? Because when you look at opportunity, equity, employment, and social mobility, that's also the ingredients for economic engine for the region as well. So this is the framework that I'm going to use throughout today. So I'm starting with my personal journey in this, and I've lived in different states, and I will connect my school experiences with these experiences. So I grew up in Michigan, which was interesting. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. And as I said before, I'm a first generation college student. And my experience started in K-12. So I shared this story to others quite often. In sixth grade, I had a discussion. My teacher was talking about pollution in the Great Lakes, because it's Michigan and the Great Lakes are around it. And what it sparked the interest in me, it sparked an interest in me thinking about what is this effect? And yes, I wasn't thinking about economic growth at that age, but I actually wrote a letter to the Environmental Protection Agency in sixth grade. And under the Freedom of Information Act, I asked for the data for the pollution in those regions. And little did I know, they actually sent that data. The raw data came being delivered week after week after week. And for me, that was very important because it was very empowering for me to have that experience where I had a question and I wanted to answer, and I was thinking about my community. This is important because it also was my introduction into STEM. I went to undergraduate school in Pennsylvania, and this is important because that's when I took momentum and started a degree in molecular and cell biology. I went to Penn State University. While there, I also attended a community college there in Harrisburg Community College, where I completed an EMT paramedic program. And for me, that was very important for my social mobility as well, because it provided me with additional resources to be able to finish my education. From there, my next school experience was in Washington, D.C. at Howard University, at a historically Black college and university, where I finished my graduate degree in molecular biology. This was important because it also provided the mobility for me to go on and go into industry. So I went on into Woods Hole, Massachusetts, and worked at a marine biological laboratory. Then I went on to live in New Haven, Connecticut, where I worked at Yale University doing cancer research. So when I think about my experience growing up, again, as a first generation college student, as an African-American male, those things were very important for me. The school was very important for me to be able to have that opportunity of employment and mobility as well. Then my last detour before coming to Oregon was in Chicago. And that's when I started my journey in the community college setting. So I was working at City College of Chicago. It's a pretty large institution, 120,000 students. I was a professor there. I taught biotechnology, I taught biology. I then became a department chair, and I sparked the interest of how I can actually help other students like myself have that school experience and also change my community and change the economy. I then moved to Portland, and I came to Portland to start at Portland Community College, the Southeast campus. It was during a time where the campus was making the decision to go from a center to a comprehensive campus. So I was given a charge as dean to lead the work of STEM and also career technical education in Southeast Portland. This is important because if you recall, prior to that campus becoming a campus, it did not provide the full opportunity for that community. But once it became a comprehensive campus, it was an economic driver for Southeast Portland. And this story isn't undifferent from any other community college, whether it's Portland Community College or Mount Hood. There's a number of community colleges across the nation, over 1,000 of them. And I like to call them economic engines because they are very important for the region in terms of providing that economic change. And the enrollment varies, from many millions of over 7 million students, and this is from 2012, in terms of the students who are affected and have this opportunity within the community college setting. So now let's tie it to our region, and specifically Mount Hood Community College, and talk about how the school provides a contribution to the local economy. One aspect of it is STEM, and I shared my STEM background simply because that's the lens that I also use. So within Oregon, you may or may not know that 22% of the jobs in Oregon fall into some type of STEM category. And I'm talking about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And those careers can drive an economy dramatically. Most people may not know that you don't need a professional doctoral degree to go into a STEM profession. Many of those professions are defined by post-secondary training certificates or an associate degree or a bachelor's degree. So when you look at the role of Mount Hood Community College or any community college, it not only provides that opportunity at the associate degree level, but it also provides the transition so that students can transition to a four-year university to complete their bachelor's degree. There's also a contribution to the economy through our career technical education programs. So whether you're looking at the healthcare fields, retail, engineering programs, manufacturing, government, the CTE programs are very important to driving that opportunity for students in employment. Every community college has a role in connecting with those industry partners. So when our curriculum is developed, we make sure that it has relevance and that there's jobs that are provided at the completion of our programs. So that is very important in terms of our contribution in terms of connecting with industry within the region. When you talk about adult basic skill, it contributes to the local economy as well. So basic skills are referring to writing, mathematics, and other employable skills that are important. So skilled workers help attract businesses in the region. Skilled workers spend more time in help developing the region. They stay local. Skilled workers help contribute to paying taxes. And skilled workers also increase to connecting their families as well. So in our region at Mount Hood, our ABS program has served over 2,000 students in the past year from our community. In terms of workforce development, it's important to realize that instruction is more than just classes. It's not just the transfer classes that you think of social science and the STEM pathway, or even just the CTE. We also connect with WorkSource. So WorkSource is part of our Mount Hood team. And last year we served over 1,000 students who are looking for jobs. They're looking for career coaching. They're looking for job search assistance. They're looking for training and education as well. Dual Credit, our College Now program, contributes to the local economy as well. So you may or may not know, Dual Credit is offered within the high schools, and it provides an opportunity for high school students to receive college credit without having to pay for that credit. So last year, within our region, within our high schools, within our region, we served over 2,000 students. Workforce training, which is different from the WorkSource. So workforce is basically when you're looking at an industry who wants customized training. So Mount Hood would go and provide the customized training that that business needs. It may be a menu of classes. It may be some unique skill that that company needs for their workforce, for their incumbent workers. We will provide that training as well. So that's very important because that partnership helps contribute to the economy. In fact, a quote from Letterman said, "We have found Mount Hood to be a critical partner in developing our key functional objectives of developing our company and training programs." So that's a very common situation that happens within the region in that partnership. Our SBDC, our Small Business Development Center, is also part of instruction, and it contributes to the local economy. In fact, nearly over $900,000 was infused to local businesses. And we do that by providing counseling, helping people develop their new businesses, and providing advising for businesses, small businesses within the region. So in fact, our demographics have ranged from a number of minority-owned businesses to startups, to new businesses within the region. So within last year, we helped 16 new businesses get started, and their sales have increased by over $3 million. So what does this all mean? There's an MZ study that we did as a college to look at the contribution that the college has to the economy, to our local economy. And that total impact is over $5 million. And where does that number come from? So based on this study from the student, it translates into a $3.70 future earning that will occur for every dollar that student invests in their education. So that's an annual return rate for students of over 17%. For the taxpayer, when you look at it, what is gained? $2.50 for every dollar that is invested into Mount Hood by the taxpayer over the course of a student working life. So that's an average return for a taxpayer of 8.2%. And for society, for every dollar that's invested into Mount Hood Community College, in Oregon, they will receive a $6.70 in return for as long as that Mount Hood student remains in the workforce. So that's why this is important in terms of the connections to the workforce, connection to transfer, to all of these opportunities, because it not only affects the students, it's a return for the taxpayers, it's a return for the society as well. So I end with this quote. So this is a quote from a student that was one of mine. And this quote says, "As an ex-offender and a single parent of a 16-year-old son, I had to decide if I wanted to continue on with no education." So this particular student had a criminal record, and they were making the decision, and they were working a minimum wage job, and they wanted to make a decision of how they wanted to change their life. And when they completed the associate degree program, they went on to complete a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in nursing. And from there, they're now contributing in a different way than they were before. Which brings me to my initial quote at the beginning. School is a driver of opportunity, equity, employment, and social mobility. So definitely, yes, there's an impact as an individual that is tremendous in terms of the opportunities that school provides and the equity and employment and the jobs that it provides. But when I look at the overall impact of it, it goes way beyond just that individual result. It is indeed an economic engine for the region, which is extremely important. Because as we look at whether, again, it's community college, K-12, or the university setting, all of these together provides the opportunity for the region to provide in people to be able to have these opportunities within industry and make a change. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Dr. McQuarters. I have a question. That was a great overview of the college and really appreciate it. But I have a specific question for you at this point in time. So you're a Black leader. You're a Black leader and a trailblazer in many ways, based on your history and how you got here. So how do Black leaders collaborate while still asking the tough questions and driving change? You're in a position to drive change in the college and in our region through the economics. So what leadership traits do you have that then you could show others your individual leadership as it pertains to the college or leadership, mentorship to students or the region? What specifically, personally, do you have that would help that, would give others in your position or going into your position a vision, a goal?
Yes, I think that the piece that I feel is a strong connection is my experience within industry. So when I'm thinking about my work as an instructional leader, I'm called a chief academic officer for the college, I'm really thinking about my own personal experience, which is why I shared that journey. For me, I looked at, again, how it contributed from my opportunities in research and in education, as well as how I want to make sure that I'm connecting with industry. So I'm constantly asking that question and trying to reach out within the community to develop stronger industry partnerships throughout the region. One, because they help inform what we need to do as a college, but also the reverse, we help provide them with the students who are able to fulfill their missions and help serve the region as well.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Okay, we're going to go on. That was a wonderful answer, Doctor. Thank you very much, and a great presentation. So we're going to go on to our next speaker, and then at the end, I'll have a couple of more questions, perhaps for all of them. Our next speaker, I've never met before. He needs to join our chamber. I'm just kidding.
I'll be there.
I've never met him before, but it was suggested that you would be a great person to speak. It's very interesting to understand the dynamics of suburbs with major cities, and you're not in a silo. What happens downtown affects the other towns around downtown. So Mingus Mapps is a candidate for the Portland City Commission. And my notes here said that what happens in the Portland economy really affects our entire region. And economic leadership and the pathway through that could be solely the running for office. How could you bring change and help in that regard? What happens in Portland totally impacts us as well. From an economic standpoint, the Portland connection right now is felt even harder during COVID-19 and the ongoing protests and the destruction of downtown area. I'm dealing with a lot of tourism-related things, and how do we get tourists to Gresham when they don't want to come to Portland? So it has a ripple effect, and it's not just a pebble in an ocean. It's a big rock in a small puddle is basically what it feels like. So, Mingus, what voice do you have, considering your experience and background, that will provide economic hope and vision for the near future and beyond? As a person of color and your higher expectations of yourself, to how can you help resolve some of these problems and be a partner with all of the surrounding communities? So, Mingus, thank you for being with us today. You've got 15 minutes to convince us.
Okay, well, great. Thank you, Lynn, and thank you, Gresham Chamber of Commerce. It's true, you guys got the best chamber ever. We'll catch up. Again, I can't wait to come out to lunch when we get past this COVID moment. What I thought I might do today is take a couple of minutes to talk about some of our shared interests and our shared concerns. You're absolutely right. What happens in Portland does not stay in Portland. We very much live in a regional economy, and if we want to both evolve our economy and jumpstart our economy, we're going to have to work better, and we're going to have to work together. And that's one of the things I can promise you today when I'm on City Council. I'll be a good partner to Gresham because our fates are deeply linked. What I thought I'd do today is just take a couple minutes to introduce myself, especially for those of you who do not know me. I also thought I might meditate a little bit on what it's like to be a Black candidate for Portland City Council at this moment in history. It's a remarkable moment, regardless of what you look like. But I thought I might share some of my perspective here. And then I thought I might dive into 3 quick economic issues that I think matter deeply in Portland, but definitely impact Gresham too. So I thought we might talk about COVID and how the city of Portland can and should respond to the COVID crisis. We are all deeply concerned about what's happening downtown, and I want to share with you some of my ideas about how we can get downtown opened up again safely. And finally, I thought I might take a minute or two to talk about equity for East Portland, since that impacts all of us. It is, I think, one of the great shames of Portland is we haven't done right by our neighbors and friends who live east of 82nd. But first, let me take a moment and slow down and introduce myself. My name is Mingus Mapps. I'm a candidate for Portland City Council. I appreciate the opportunity to come and introduce myself to you. Let me tell you, I'll tell you why I'm running for office, and that's because I love Portland. You know, I think we have just one of the great cities in North America. I think it's true of the entire region, so I'm not excluding Gresham here. You know, Portlanders are kind, creative, connected. We live in a beautiful place. But at the same time, you know, our city faces some extraordinary challenges at this moment. We have COVID, our economy is in free fall. I'm the dad of an 11-year-old and a 10-year-old who you might hear in the background. And that's because they haven't been in a school building for about 7 months now. And of course, here in Portland, we've also had protests out on the streets almost every night for 4 or 5 months now. Navigating this extraordinary basket of challenges is going to require extraordinary leadership. And that's one of the reasons why I'm in this race. I believe I have the background and vision needed to get Portland back on track. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. As you heard, I'm a dad. I got a 10-year-old and an 11-year-old. I'm pragmatic, I'm progressive, I have deep roots in Portland. I did my undergraduate work at Reed College and then went on to get my PhD in government from Cornell University. A lot of my own research deals with issues surrounding urban politics, inequality, and public policy. And let me tell you that everything that Dr. McQuarters said is exactly true. The best way to vaccinate against poverty and instability in a young person's life, especially a person of color, is to make sure they have access to education and home ownership. That very much is going to shape my agenda when I'm on City Council. And I thank Notre Dame Community College for the important work that they do over there. They make us stronger and better and wealthier. In my own work, as I mentioned, you can basically take my career and divide it in half. I've spent half of my career being an academic where I teach on issues of race and urban politics at places like Cornell and Harvard and Brandeis University and Portland State University. And I've also been a public servant here in Portland, where I've held policymaking positions at the City of Portland, Multnomah County, and Portland Public Schools. Those experiences have taught me an awful lot about how Portland works and has taught me why Portland sometimes doesn't work, and has given me some ideas about how we can make Portland work better. Let me just share with you 5 things I hope to accomplish on City Council, maybe 6 things I hope to accomplish on City Council during my first term. First of all, we have to conquer the COVID crisis. Until we get on top of this, we can't make progress on anything else. And we also have to acknowledge that the COVID crisis is complex and multifaceted. So there's a public health piece. You know, unfortunately, our COVID new case numbers are about as bad as they've ever been. In other words, we are not at the end of this, we are at the middle of this, and we need to work together to keep each other healthy and safe. Also, our economy obviously is in free fall, and we need to do something about that. I'm deeply concerned about making sure that we meet everyone's basic needs, everything from food to housing to shelter to education, and we can get into how we can do that more in our Q&A. You know, as a Black man and a parent to 2 young children, issues of racial equality are incredibly important to me, and we will make progress there. I will make sure that the police, ban ban the use of chokeholds. And if you get into the protesting pieces, you can. I very much want to see us stop using tear gas and rubber bullets against peaceful protesters. And then at a deeper level, I think one thing that just Portland really needs is fundamental police reform. And one of the reasons I'm running for office at this particular time is I want to be at the table as Portland goes about reinventing policing for the 21st century. I think the thing that we need most is a system for providing for independent review of police actions when things go wrong. I very much look forward to being at the table when we develop that system. And I think it's crucial that I be at the table, for the entirety of Portland's history and for the entirety of the United States history. We've been struggling as a community to figure out how we go about frankly, policing African-American men. But we've never gotten it right. And if you want to get it right, one of the first things you should do is at least have a couple of African-American men at the table. I take that responsibility quite seriously. And then after we address those issues of the moment, we got to get back to some classic Portland questions. Things like homelessness. I'm going to challenge the city to end chronic homelessness in the next 4 years. That means let's house the folks who are sleeping on the streets 365 days a year. I think we brought 4,000 units of new affordable housing that's connected to social services. We might actually be able to do that in the tradition of street camping in our streets. Another important issue, which is going to be very important to our neighbors out in Gresham, is let's build more affordable housing that actual real working families can afford. That is one of the ways in which we stabilize our community. And then after that, I think it's very important that we do fundamental reform down at City Hall. That's why I want to get the city and City Hall to abandon our broken form of commission government. Instead of having each commissioner in charge of a bunch of different bureaus, I think we should have a city manager who's charged with coordinating services across different city bureaus. That way we can coordinate services, spend our dollars more effectively, and I think have much more efficient programs. So that's kind of who I am and why I'm in this race and what I hope to accomplish. The question you might be asking yourself is, Mingus, this is kind of a crazy time to be in politics. How does it feel? And I'll tell you, we've been doing this for about 18 months now, and it is a crazy moment. I tell you, I got into this race because I was deeply concerned about dysfunction down in City Hall, but that was way before COVID, and that was way before protest, and it is just a remarkable moment. I'm keenly aware, like Dr. McQuarters, I have a PhD, and I'm kind of a political historian in a bunch of ways, so I'm aware that it was less than 100 years ago that Oregon repealed the last of its black exclusion laws. Those were the laws that prevented African Americans from just existing in the state. And now here I am, 2 weeks away from maybe becoming just the third Black man to ever serve on Portland City Council. That is a sobering and humbling moment. At the same time, I'm verging on being on City Council at a time when we have people in the streets demanding racial reform and racial justice, and I feel the weight of that moment too. I know I need to get this right, both for me and for the people who come after me. So I take this very seriously, and I look forward to serving the people of Portland and the people of the Portland metro area, including our neighbors and friends out in Gresham. Let's quickly shift over to a couple of policy areas that I think touch on the economy and touch on some of our shared interests. We all as community, let's start with COVID. We are all struggling with the impact of COVID. Indeed, I think right now, City Council out here in Portland is taking a look at our budget this afternoon to try to figure out how we go about cutting the city budget in response to the COVID crisis. And frankly, this is not the first time this is not the last time we're going to go through an exercise like this. The next couple of fiscal quarters are going to be tough, amongst the most difficult that we have seen as a city. My priority through all of this is to maintain basic public services. So let's maintain public safety services. Let's maintain enough infrastructure so that our economy works. Let's make sure that we keep people healthy. And I have some basic bottom line goals here, beyond sort of bending the curve. I think it's crucially important that no Portlander lose their house or their housing during this crisis. And I think it's also deeply important that we make sure our schools work. Another point, so that's COVID. Let's kind of take a case study of COVID and crisis in downtown. Lynn just mentioned before that Gresham very much depends on tourism. Portland too. I think I read in the paper yesterday that our tourism, the hotel traffic in downtown Portland is down 80%, 80. And every day I talk to either a business owner or someone who lives downtown who tells me, you know, our downtown core is dying. I don't know if you've been down there lately, but it is it's a maze of plywood tacked to the sides of buildings. There's far too much graffiti and vandalism. Too many of our businesses are closed. We see businesses pulling out of downtown right and left. And at some point, you got to ask yourself, you know, when and how do we stop this spiral? I have a plan for beginning to turn the tide. I think one of the things that we need to do is to house the folks who are sleeping on our streets in downtown Portland. The other day, we got up early and did a 6 a.m. walking tour through downtown Chinatown and the Pearl District, and with business owners. And they just wanted me to see sort of the conditions that they lived in. And, you know, during our 90-minute walk, we counted 180 tents in Chinatown. Business owners were telling me, you know, Mingus, I'm ready to open up my restaurant, but I can't open up my restaurant because there are 8 tents in front of my front door. Plus, you know, once or if COVID gets into those communities, it can just be, you know, we will see, they'll make our current COVID moment seem like child's play. So we have a real crisis there. That's why I'm calling on the city to open up socially distanced shelters for people who are currently living on the streets. I think that if we brought on 500 new places for folks to sleep, we could do a lot to basically get the tents out of downtown. We can get houseless people into safe spaces where they can both socially distance and have access to hygiene, like water and showers and whatnot, and hand washing stations. And then after we kind of, you know, take care of those basic human needs, I think we need to take a look at and serve our business community. Deeply concerned about helping businesses that have been vandalized to come back. That's why I will direct Prosper Portland to work with local businesses who have been suffered vandalism or broken windows to help get that damage repaired and paid for. I used to work for Historic Park Rose, which kind of helped do economic development in the Park Rose neighborhood. One of the things I did is run a storefront grants program to help local businesses out there paint their storefronts, put up new awnings. I know how to run programs like that. We need to basically take a storefront grant program and apply it to our entire downtown. We can do that. We'll get it done. And the other thing that we need to do and get done right now is just to do a surge on basic maintenance downtown. So let's send out our good friends at Clean and Safe and Central City Concerns to pick up the garbage, pick up the needles. Let's send out our anti-graffiti program to paint over the graffiti. I know our parks, for example, are in deep economic trouble, but at the same time, I think we just got to do a surge on maintaining our downtown parks so that they're clean and safe. And that way we can begin the process of getting people to come back to our city center, and hopefully that prosperity will begin to echo out through the entire city. And one of the places where I really want prosperity to echo out to is East Portland. Before, a minute ago, I mentioned how I used to work for Historic Park Rose, which is a nonprofit group dedicated to promoting equitable economic development east of 82nd. And I took that job because I'm keenly aware of the degree to which Portland has neglected East Portland. Everything from infrastructure to social services to just like political cloud. I want to change that. You know, Portland, I think one of the core problems with our city is that we tend to think, we missee and misunderstand the city. I think that we tend to think of the Willamette River as being the middle of the city. But if you take a look at population, the population center of Portland is actually Gateway. But that's not how we've invested our dollars in terms of public services or infrastructure. I want to see us provide, better roads, better, crosswalks, actually get some police protection out there. So those communities and the families who live out there can begin to partake in some of the prosperity that I know will come back to Portland when we get past this COVID moment. I could go on for another 3 hours, but I think we have another exciting speaker coming online too. So I'll pause here and either take some questions or I'm excited to listen to Travis too.
Mingus, thank you. I'm not sure how long you would have talked if you would have taken a breath. So
Yeah.
no,
My staff is
had,
encouraging me to do that more.
No, you had so much you wanted to make sure was said, and so I appreciate it. And you really covered a lot of territory. I do have just a quick question
Sure.
and a quick answer. So your lens, you said you will be the third if you are elected, the third. Do you think your lens as a Black man is different in how you're going to come up with solutions, or do you think that your lens is in addition to how you're going to come up with solutions? Because I don't walk in your shoes, so I'm not sure. I know what my lens is like, but how do you think your lens would be?
I think, for me, and I think, and this I suspect is one of the meta lessons that we'll learn from tonight's event is that, there are many different ways to be Black, and there are politics even amongst African Americans. At least for me, I think what being Black does is it's given me an experience about what it means and how it feels to be discriminated against. So I see those barriers and I've experienced them, but I hope that I also universalize that. So, I think being Black has also made me much more sensitive to the discrimination that women suffer, that people friends from the LGBTQ community suffer, friends from the disability community. We all face barriers, I think, in life. And one of our obligations, especially like the panel that we have today, if you've been able to overcome those barriers, one of your obligations in your work life is to help remove them for the people who come behind you. That's literally how I got here today. Over time, people have who have been higher up in me in the hierarchy have removed barriers, given me shots to give back. And when I'm on city council, I'll do that too. I definitely come to it from the perspective of an African American man. But in addition to being a very specific point of view, I also think that being a Black man is also a very universal perspective.
Thank you for that. That it gave me a chill as you were saying. You just mentioned that you've overcome. I see both you and Al and Travis, I'm sure, has some experiences too. That you have overcome, but you've also used it to your advantage to add to the recipe, to the flavor of how you make decisions. And
absolutely,
I'm grateful for that. I'm not grateful for those experiences that you've had necessarily, but to the man that you are today, that has added to your leadership skill set. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you.
So last but not least, he asked me to say that. No. Last speaker that we're going to have the experience with today is Travis Stovall. He is the owner of eRep. eRep is one of the greatest speaking days that we have in our Leadership Academy class every year. It by far is the number one ranked class of the entire year. Travis, we just had the graduation ceremony, and you got 8 out of 8 on the number one class for that particular year. He's an owner of eRep. It's a small business. You have about 7 or so employees. You just finished your term on the TriMet board, among many other organizations. The economic discussion from you, I would like to hear, what's owning a small business like? How involved, you've been very involved in all kinds of community organizations, and you've decided to run for mayor, but we're not necessarily going to talk about that. But it's a very difficult time. You've been a business through a difficult time. You've been an EME director through a difficult time. So what asset do you bring to our local government as a small business owner and a Black man? Do you see that first? Is this small business first? So Travis, I would like you to speak about your perspective of the pie as it relates to economy in our community. Travis Stovall.
Excellent. Thank you, Lynn. And I want to thank Dr. McQuarters and Mingus Mapps for joining us for this important conversation. I mean, I think it's so critical that we take the time to look at leadership and the opportunity to engage and bring Black leaders who have an opportunity to cause positive change across the board. So again, I just want to thank both of you for attending this event and having this critical conversation. I want to thank the Chamber for setting it up and ensuring that, Black voices do have a platform to be engaged and actually share some of our lived experiences, which, as Lynn, you already referenced, is something that's going to influence our ability to lean into some of the tougher conversations as we talk about positive and effective change. I will start the conversation by touching on some similar thoughts and ideas that Dr. McQuarters already referenced and Mingus also touched on, but I have a similar story. I grew up in inner city of Kansas City, Kansas, experienced multiple break-ins to our home and numerous times where basically almost everything got stolen out of our home. Two of those break-ins happened when my dad was home, and so that was kind of a scary situation and occurrence. I also grew up in a neighborhood that is historically a red line community, and that's something that I've got the opportunity to experience. The disinvestment that happens in our communities and the challenges that exist there for the folks trying to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. It's a challenge when you don't have boots, and so that's part of the lived experience that I've had the opportunity to allow for me to bring to some of the difficult conversations. To that end, I also saw shootings. We did similar to, again, Dr. McQuarters. We actually had our front door shot out and shattered by stray bullets. But the thing that really sits with me at this point is both my parents worked 2 to 3 jobs to be able to give me an opportunity to, not just me, but my brothers and sister, the opportunity to move forward in a positive way. They provided stable housing and a consistency of home life. And then, by the time we got to high school, my parents actually noticed that there was a significant achievement gap that my brothers and my sister weren't quite achieving. And so they took us out and commuted us out to the suburban schools so that we would have an opportunity to close that achievement gap. And I am so thankful for that because it allowed us to have a deeper education. But I'm a bit disappointed that my parents dedicated so much of their life and effort to just give us an opportunity at something where that everybody else has naturally, and so that's something that has lived with me all these years because, again, my parents worked hard to allow us the opportunity to achieve that. So that is the foundation that we work now upon, and the foundation that we have to allow this lived experience to lean into some of these things. And it's not just about racial inequality. It's truly about our opportunity to lean into these things from an economic development standpoint. So it has given me, and it's given the other 2 individuals on this call, the ability and opportunity to see things and see some of the challenging things that happen when we as a community, as a society, don't necessarily embrace all of the folks and individuals that exist in our society. Now, it's not to say that, in this situation, Blacks are the only things that matter. That's not the case. And I don't believe any of us have said that on this call, but it is saying that we need to ensure that we're allowing everybody an equal opportunity to survive and thrive. And I believe that happens with equitable economic development. And that's the foundation of equitable economic development is business opportunities. And those business opportunities generally have been something that's been absent within, the Black community and communities where Black and brown people exist. As a matter of fact, only 1% of venture capital actually goes to Black founders. And I'm a Black founder of a technology company. And, generally it takes some of that additional capital for companies like mine to be able to hit that kind of next level of opportunity. And almost every time when I sit down with venture funders, it's always something else that I need to accomplish. Yeah, you got this, you got traction, you got revenue, you got a great team, you got great technology, but there's going to be something else you need. And so there's always that something else that's required for me to be able to access that additional funding to bring our technology to market. And so that sometimes it's very frustrating that we don't have the similar opportunities. As a matter of fact, Citibank recently came out with a study that found that $16 trillion, 16 trillion with a T, has been lost to racial discrimination in America since 2000. 16 trillion. If we go back just a few years, 16 trillion was the entire GDP of the United States of America. And we lost 16 trillion to racial discrimination. So, so when you think about that, when you think about the existence of the systematic racism, there has to be credibility to this conversation if we have lost that much opportunity. Think about adding that much back and spreading it across all Americans. That would be tremendous in a way that we could crush poverty. Now, they also went on to say that over the next 5 years, if we worked hard to adequately and appropriately address racial discrimination in the workplace in the United States of America, building companies, things like that, we could see a $5 trillion benefit, $5 trillion benefit over the next 5 years. That's an additional $1 trillion to the U.S. economy, which allows us on a global scale to maintain and retain our global dominance in regards to economic prosperity. And that's important. And so we must leverage all people to contribute to our society. That's what we have to do as we go forward. We have to ensure that we've got equitable economic development, as I've already referenced, which we have to ensure that no one is left behind. And again, as a business owner, that is the foundation of what's given me opportunity now to move forward in the efforts that I now have and in the opportunities I now have. And it's been a challenge. I mean, there's no question it's been a challenge in starting and trying to grow my company, because sometimes you walk into a room and you're doing a sale and it's you get to the end of that and you've got just a rock solid product, which thank you, Lynn, for your reference to what I've been able to have an opportunity to contribute to the leadership group in regards to the CVI. We know we have a rock star product. We know that we can effectively change companies. We've effectively done it numerous times, decreasing turnover, by more than 50%, increasing profitability sometimes by upwards to 200%. But you get done and you could sense that something's just not right when you leave that meeting. So we need to ensure that no one is left behind. We need a more balanced distribution of funds as we start businesses. We already know that there is a dearth of loans to women and minority founders. That's something that has been well studied and researched. So we've got to make sure that we are, applying and supplying these businesses the dollars needed to grow their companies. When you think about folks who have made significant contributions to our societies, what if they hadn't had the opportunity to do it? What if Ben Franklin hadn't had the opportunity to contribute to society the way he did? Would we have some of the things that he helped found? What about George Washington Carver? He did this during a time where essentially he was not supported, but he still powered forward in adding tremendous things to our society, to our economy, by nature of the peanut of all things. And so by disinvesting in everybody, and not everybody, but by disinvesting in specific, parts of our population and society, we do have a massive challenge in us being able to effectively move forward and ensure that we've got economic development, because we know that small business is the lifeblood of employment in America. Small business employs, north of what I believe it's 80 to 85% of folks in America. And that's because they are our mothers, our fathers, our sisters, our brothers, our cousins, aunts and uncles. All of these folks are starting small businesses and employing people in our communities. Medium to large size businesses are absolutely critical to overall economic health also. So we don't want to forget them. Sometimes I think they get kind of a bad rap, but I can tell you that some of our medium to large size businesses also contribute a lot to our communities by way of philanthropy. And so those are the types of things that we need to ensure that we understand that and appreciate their contributions to that level. but we also need to understand that, ensuring that small businesses have the ability to start and grow, and then we support those businesses is critical. So, and the way we do that, which I think is one of the most fundamental foundational ways, is education. As I already referenced, we've got to continue to look at education. How do we make sure that we've got equitable educational funding across the state? That's one of the biggest challenges that I see. Dr. McQuarters already referenced workforce development. I've been on the board of Work Systems Inc. for quite some time. I'm the vice chair of that board. And workforce development and workforce retraining is so important and critical to our communities, and things that we have to continue to invest in. One of a good friend of mine is a guy by the name of Bob Tackett. Bob Tackett is with the Northwest Labor Council. And the reason I bring him up is because Bob used to work at the Reynolds plant out here in Troutdale for many years. And when it closed, Bob was without a job after having worked there for numerous years. And he went through the worker retraining program and now is able to be the executive director for the Northwest Labor Council. And so that's something that really shows you that worker retraining helps. It allows folks the opportunity to transition into roles and responsibilities that the new economy will need. And we have to make sure that we're funding and investing in that. We need to open access to trades. Not a college education isn't going to be for everybody, and the trades and the trade community is critically important that we make sure that folks of all race and color, economic opportunities, have ways that they can join the trades. I see trades many times as, especially when we start talking about what folks have to achieve in both the electrical side and the plumbing side and the carpentry side. Some of these folks have to spend years of training, and I went through 6 years of college education and I come out with a master's degree, and sometimes they've got to do multiples of that, and they're not recognized in the same way, and they should be. I can tell you right now that many times when I sit down with a plumber and an electrician and they're talking to me about some of this stuff, I really don't fully understand what they're talking about. Even to this day, if I wire in a three-way switch, I have to look at the instructions because I don't fully understand how a three-way switch works. But many times the electrician does. And so those are the types of things that we have to lean into and we have to support to ensure that we can lift and give everybody the opportunity to move forward. One critical piece of our society that I think needs to be mentioned in this regard is Joe McFerrin and Rosemary Anderson High School. Joe McFerrin and Rosemary Anderson High School in Portland Opportunities and Industrialization Center does a phenomenal job within our community and beyond. My hat's off to him and the efforts that him and his team have created. I can't say enough about the contribution of his organization to our community and how we have the ability and opportunity to move things forward. Last couple of things that I want to touch on: community colleges are a critical component to our society. I actually, when I graduated from high school, I didn't think I was going to be able to go to college. And I actually, the summer got done after my senior year in high school, and I had the opportunity to go to community college. It cost me $600 for a whole semester. Whole full load semester, $600. I was able to pay that. I worked at UPS. And I was able to pay that and go to community college. And I finished up community college, and I thought, well, I could do this. And went on to four-year school, got my degree in business administration, and then went on for my master's in business administration, not thinking I was going to be able to get to go to college even to begin with. And now I sit with a master's degree in business, and I'm extremely thankful, for all of the opportunities that have been given to me along the way and the things that I've earned along the way. Lastly, I think we need to continue to abolish poverty across the board. We need to abolish poverty. There is no correlation between crime and race. So there's no correlation. The research has been done. There's no correlation between crime and race. There is a correlation between race and poverty. The moment that we take our efforts and everything we do to ensure that we are crushing poverty is the moment that we can have positive impacts on all the things that we just referenced. And we can also have a positive impact on crime in our community. Homelessness also responds to ability and opportunity for equitable economic development across the board. And the way we do that is ensure our policies do not hold back. And Lynn, you asked the one question. I'll finish up answering this question. You asked the question, what does kind of that lived experience give us? it gives us the opportunity and ability to understand intuitively and somewhat naturally the unforeseen consequences that may come out of some policy decisions, because we've seen it. I mean, I've seen this investment that has happened in the community my parents still live in, and how it hurts everybody's economic opportunities to move up and out. So that is absolutely one of the great benefits that we have as we come from our lived experiences to lean into some of these things to ensure that we've got the proper adjustments to the policies and issues that exist within our communities. So thank you again for inviting me and inviting both of these individuals to this conversation. Greatly, greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Travis. Al and Mingus, if you could put your video back on so we can see your face. I'm going to take a group photo in just a minute. But I do have one question. Since I've got you here, you're a captive audience. And this question comes from me personally after hearing you. You don't know me. None of you know me very well. You don't know what I do very well. I mean, you don't live with me and hear me complain at dinner time or any of that. So you have an assumption, you have an expectation or what you think you know. But I'm very serious about this question. What can I do as a CEO of a chamber of a suburb town to have the most impact on the economy as it pertains to Black leadership? I mean, seriously, and I'm not expecting a book of answers and it's an off the cuff kind of answer. I understand that. But as a CEO, you're not knowing me well, business organization, how can I impact? What can I do to have the most impact on the economy as it pertains to Black leadership? Do any of you want to go first?
I'll go ahead and go first since I've kind of finished up. So, that's a great question, Lynn. And I think it starts with, since the George Floyd killing, there's three things that I've been asking, folks, and when I consider the powerful majority dominant culture individuals. I say the first thing is educate yourself. I mean, I don't really have the desire to convince anyone that racial discrimination, both on a systemic and systematic level, exists. But what I will share with you my lived experience and how that's impacted me both personally, emotionally, and the challenges that I have faced as a Black person. The next thing I say, amplify our voices, allow us the opportunity to tell our lived experiences, give us the appropriate platform to ensure that we can tell folks about what we've experienced and how we can make the positive change. And it's the amplification of voice that allows us to do that. One of which is there's two of us that are running for public office. That gives us the opportunity to lean into some of these tough conversations and guide our various cities in the right direction. And then lastly, it's lend your voice to the defense. When you notice and you see discriminatory behavior happening, we've got to ensure that we are lending the powerful voice of the powerful majority to this conversation and ensuring that we are stopping and crushing that from continuing to move forward. And that's across the board. When we notice that anytime we've got distribution of various resources, monetary resources to assist our communities and our business community, it needs to be something that's equitable. And we need to make sure that we're distributing those funds equitably across the board. I think about the work we've done at TriMet, and we delivered the largest contract in Oregon history to a minority contractor of almost $80 million. I mean, those are the types of things that make constant and lasting change. Because if you see the workforce of the individual, of the company that we delivered that Rainmore Construction that we delivered the contract to, it is just a beautiful rainbow of diversity. It really is. And those are the positive things that begin to positively impact our communities.
Okay, educate, amplify, and lend voice. I've got those written down. Al or Mingus, who wants to go next? Okay, Mingus, you opened your mouth. There you go.
I'll go. And I will be brief now because Peabody has decided to rip up the street outside my house. So if you hear the pounding, that's what's going on there. First of all, I think you're doing great. I would recommend, I would recommend four things. One, everything Travis said, I think is exactly right on. Number two, I do think you're doing great creating forums like this where you can highlight and showcase people of color. I think is amazing and an important thing to do. Thank you so much to you and everyone else who tuned in and helped make today happen. Three, I encourage you to really double down on trying to diversify your organizations and your networks. Doing that will both help people who don't look like you, and it will also, I think, make your organizations better. And then I want to encourage everyone who can hear my voice right now to make a commitment to mentor just one person in the next year who doesn't look anything like you. It doesn't have to be a Black man, but just reach out and share your experience. Help someone who is coming up behind you succeed. And I think if you do those three things, plus the stuff that Travis talked about, and plus the stuff that Dr. McQuarters is about to talk about, I think that you'll be a force for good.
Okay, I've got one of those already taken care of. Diversify your organization in our staff, 50% a minority. And that's not bad for an organization our size. So there you go.
That's amazing.
So, okay, so I've got all yours down: mentorship, forum, diversify, and then the three that Travis got. So Al, looks like you've got it made. You can do ditto and be done.
I think so. I definitely agree with what has already been said. And I think that this is an amazing opportunity today. So I want you to really recognize, and we're all acknowledging that today our opportunity to share our voices on this important topic is one of the most important things as well. For my list, in addition to like the mentorship piece and the diversity piece, would be the whole piece of diversity, equity, inclusion. So the piece of not just diversifying, the conversation and the groups and the teams, but also the inclusion and equity piece that goes along with that
right.
as well, that DEI work. So I think that's just what I would add.
Right. That's a good perspective. And I want to thank all three of you for not making me feel uncomfortable about talking about it, because it is hard sometimes to be open and honest and worry that I'm saying the wrong thing at the wrong time and not meaning to. You all have made me feel very comfortable. So my hat's off to you for helping me, a blonde and old person.
Well, also thank you, Lynn. I think you made all of us feel welcome and included today. Your staff too, they've been great.
Thank you, Mingus. Thank you very much, and best of luck in your race. So with that being said, Travis, Al, and Mingus, this has been a phenomenal opportunity, not just for me personally, but for our chamber and for those that are going to be able to look at this in the future, because it has been recorded. So great job, all three of you, and thanks for all the work and preparation that it took to be with us today. I also want to thank our sponsors. Again, Portland General Electric, well done. The Boeing Company, let's get some planes back in the air. Columbia Bank does a great job with diversity too, so let's be sure and use them. Gresham Barlow School District, I'm having lunch with Dr. Pereira this week. It's my turn to buy, so thank you for your sponsorship. And MetroEast Community Media. Next month, on Tuesday, November 17th, we have another Business and Leaders Luncheon sponsored by the same great sponsors. I'm going to ask you to watch for details as we continue to confirm, because I think I want to have candidates that won offices come back and talk, but we'll see. We'll see if the results are done by then. Who knows what's going to happen with this election cycle. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank all 37 of you that took your time at lunchtime today to join us at the Business and Leaders Luncheon at the Gresham Area Chamber of Commerce, the best darn chamber in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye now.
Good luck, everybody.
Have a great afternoon.